Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake, and today we're talking about Lies of P. This is a Souls-like style game from South Korean developer Round 8 Studios, and it's published by NeoWiz. This is straight up embracing this now classic subgenre. A lot of people have compared this to like a new Bloodborne. I think that's a little bit too derivative. This is its own thing, but it's classic Souls-style gameplay. You grind through challenging areas, you farm souls, you cash them in at a bonfire, you talk to cryptic, vague NPCs sometimes, and you get your ass kicked by really challenging bosses. Now, we've seen a lot of other studios tackle this style, but first impressions here, even like 25 hours in, I think this is a pretty damn solid one that the sweaties are gonna like. Like, it really seems like a love letter to FromSoft, like they get it. And it's a nice palate cleanser after the massive open world Elden Ring to tackle a more traditionally structured game here. And hey, just so you know, the usual housekeeping here, I've been playing a review copy on PlayStation 5. All this footage here is the PS5 version. And as I say with every game in this genre as a warning, I am bad at them. I clearly suck, but I still like them, and I try my best. So that's what counts, okay? And importantly, so you know, this footage is as spoiler-free as possible. I strongly believe that half of the thrill of these types of games is having that big boss jump out and surprise you for the first time. So I'm limiting my footage to mostly some of the earlier hours to preserve the surprise. If you played the demo, just know I'm only showing a bit beyond there, but I will say, if you have played the demo, mechanically, it's only a small taste. And I think that's important because the game has a lot of cool stuff in it. It is well-paced and introduces new mechanics further in than you'd expect. But the style, you know, this haunted Victorian puppet gothic type thing they have going on, it's pretty awesome. Actually wanted a little bit more of it, but I'll get to that in a bit. The main gist of the setup at the start of the game is this. It's a retelling of the classic Pinocchio fairy tale. You're the puppet boy, and you awaken in the city of Krat, this beautiful, gilded, industrial city now crumbling because of puppet automaton machines gone rogue and all sorts of other nasty stuff. So you hack and slash your way through, occasionally gathering with your few quiet allies to cash in souls and level up and tweak your build at the Firelink Shrine equivalent of Hotel Krat. It's like this beautiful haunted hotel building. It's pretty straightforward, but as it goes, it gets more complicated in the character build department, which I think people will like. Now, combat is satisfying. You're dodging, you have strikes, you have heavy hits. They have a decent hit response feel to them, even if it's a tiny bit soft, and the sound effects are good. And you know, you're wearing enemies down for fatal blows, you're doing the backstab thing, and the animations really sell a lot of it. Switching to a heavy weapon and doing some big, heavy wind-up smash attack is always really satisfying to nail. And the game introduces a lot of exciting weapon types to change things up. I expected to run around the whole game with like a fancy boy rapier the whole time, but I was consistently tempted with other builds. Anyway, back to just the combat stuff you're doing. You're blocking and you're timing the block button perfectly to mitigate any damage. Timings are pretty brutal, and reading some enemy attacks feels incredibly tough because this one can be extremely unforgiving. I mean, look at me on screen here, getting my ass kicked. It's not always quite as precise as a Souls stickler might want, but it does feel really darn close. It does have a sort of Bloodborne type thing where if you accrue some damage through blocking, you have a small window of jumping into attack mode to gain some lost health back. And I always have loved that type of mechanic. It's encouraging strategic aggression. It's cool. Lies of P gets it really right with all the other stuff added on. Like, to name just a few, a special attack meter with 2 different abilities you can use on the fly depending on your weapon build. These are called Fable Arts. You know, it can be like a big magic charged hit, a rapid strike thing, cool stuff like that. And then maybe an overpowered block or a temporary buff to your weapon. The brilliant thing is, as you pick up weapons, you can reassemble them into combinations that have your preferred specs, of course, but more importantly, those abilities I mentioned. Every weapon is both a top part, like a blade or whatever, and the bottom, like a handle or a hilt. So you can mix and match combinations, like putting an axe head on the handle of a dagger, dagger. The weapon will handle differently, and if you have your stats right, it's going to make sense, but then with that, you access the dagger handle's special attacks. That's pretty cool. It's a simple but good process, and the depth is in upgrading both the top part and the handle separately with their own unique sub-upgrading systems. So you're doing that, you're dumping souls or ergo into stuff like health, stamina, attack, a few other things, and on top of that, you have a cool mechanical arm that gives you access to even more abilities to use on the fly. If you've only played the demo, you haven't really seen anything. The Legion arm stuff is absolutely awesome, and once it opens up, you're able to earn and craft a bunch of different arms that have wildly different use cases. Aside from the starting punching arm and the grappling hook arm, you can end up shooting a big bomb, a stun blast, a limited use little arm shield, and a really cool one where you can plant mines in the ground that detonate when an enemy walks up. Now, all of these have their own unique upgrade trees where you can level them up and get access to some significant change-ups to each thing. So, like smaller things like having a shorter charge shot time to bigger stuff like being able to move while you use certain abilities, the ability to grapple towards enemies, not just pull them towards you. There's a lot. And along with that, you're collecting rare items to spend on your character's mechanical heart, which acts as kind of like a traditional skill tree with a bit of extra depth behind each selection that you dump points into having more health charges or special meter or an extra dodge. And then when you dump a point into them, you can choose bonus attributes as well. So there isn't like RPG armor rating type stuff, just skins, very cool ones, but there is a subsystem of equipable items to buff and protect you, and you have to manage weight within it. And then on top of that, there's the wish stone system, and then there's the throwables, the sharpening your blade with special elemental buffs. There's a lot to this one, and not enough time to really explain it all in this video, but I really enjoyed the game more because of all this stuff. You're gonna see gameplay of people playing a lot differently, not just like a heavy or light weapon, but all of the cool arm abilities and the fable arts and experimenting with that. There's some creativity and some good room for screwing around here, and it's always fun and it's always enticing. And speaking of enticing, it's the setting, it's the art design, the direction, the level design, all of that here. Krat is beautiful. You end up going to some surrounding areas that have varying degrees of coolness. There's a couple of areas in the game that kind of dragged on a little bit for me. They felt a little boring and not as cool as like some of those big moments. But thankfully, like I said, the game is fairly well paced, and if you're playing at an okay clip, you're gonna move past some of the more boring environments with sometimes occasionally a few boring enemy types, but I'd say 75% of the enemy types kick ass, and the bosses absolutely deliver. My only thing really is that I wish they dived even deeper into this style. I wish there was more detail to the environments, because where like a lot of the stuff you see on screen here does look stunning, you can turn a corner and you can find a room, and there are some barren, empty rooms that just feel like blank video game rooms. It's a small complaint. It's only here and there. Sometimes it bummed me out a little bit. Otherwise though, visually, the game looks great. I had no performance issues on PlayStation 5 at all. A couple little bits of texture pop in the earlier levels, but that was really it. Like I said, the bosses are cool, the cutscenes are cool, the chaos is cool. There's actually some interesting stuff to the story here. They are really trying something. How it lands, I think, is going to depend on the person, and some of the voice acting and the writing specifically is kind of weird and disjointed, but it was, you know, unique, so you got to give them points for that. So I do think ultimately if you were looking for like a new Bloodborne, since From Software seemingly isn't going to make another one anytime soon or even update the PS4 version, this can kind of scratch that itch. It still is different. I don't think I would like to compare it to Bloodborne. It is very much its own special thing, and in conjunction with that, Lies of P is also its very own specific, distinct, special thing. With the amount of stuff you can lump onto your character, like I said, with the fable arts, the wishes, the character build with the heart, and some secrets I've still honestly yet to uncover, with a whole kind of lies system and little bits of choice you can make with NPCs. Lies of P does feel very much like its own thing. It is clearly, definitely going for a Soulsborne style game. They clearly love From Software, but everything else beyond that is just so unique, and I think people are really gonna dig this one. It is, of course, incredibly challenging, like I've said, but I've seen some people, and I relate to those people, who wanna try this game. You know, the style, the atmosphere, all that stuff really appeals to them, but they're just not a Souls-like person. I get that. I will say this one does a pretty good job of easing you in. in. I found it pretty easy to pick up and play. Obviously, you're gonna hit walls, but there's a lot to experiment with. There's a lot to go explore and do stuff to kind of really get you acclimated to this harsh type of gameplay style. So I would say if you like the art direction or you've been waiting for a game like this, but you didn't want like the most ultra hard game in the world, I would still say consider giving this one a shot. It might be worth pushing through, because if you can overcome some of the challenges, you're gonna see some really cool stuff, dude.
If you're determined to pass, you must prove your identity. Who are you? Are you a stalker? Interesting. I thought all the stalkers died when the workshop tower collapsed.
But that's a before you buy. You know how this goes by now. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. Did you expect yet another good video game to release this year? Are you already busy with a bunch of other games? Well, add Lies of P to the list. Let me know what you're playing right now, and if you had any intentions of picking up Lies of P, especially after reviews have dropped. Did you play the demo? What'd you think of that? Let's talk anything Lies of P. Let's talk anything Pinocchio down in the comments. Would love to hear from you guys. Hopefully, seeing some gameplay and hearing some insight and some first impressions steered you one way or the other. If it did, clicking the like button does help us out. That's all you gotta do. Thank you. We do appreciate it. But that's it. I'm Jake Baldino. See you guys next time.